I took a road trip in my 2022 Silverado with the 3.0 Duramax. I had one goal in mind, and that was to beat my prior best numbers that were set on this exact drive, but in doing so, I ended up trying B20 fuel and learning that my gauge cluster is very far off from factory hand calculations. The truck is on stock tires and is stock height. I have installed a PPE resonator delete pipe, intercooler pipes, S&B intake duct with a factory air filter, and it's all being fed by a Stillen air scoop. The only difference on my current setup from the previous top numbers was the addition of the Stillen scoop and the removal of the S&B intake box. To start the test, I filled up at a Chevron station near my house and reset my trip meter while documenting the mile per gallon numbers, which are 39.6 for 25 miles, 35.0 for 50 miles, and 26.9 for 450 miles. 6,470 miles on the truck to start, and I did do a secondary fill up to make sure that the tank is full to the top. My starting point is just south of Salt Lake City, Utah, and ending in Anaheim, California. Should be roughly 1,300 miles on this whole trip. Now I finally got the Banks iDash installed, and the only two parameters I was able to see was the engine coolant temp and the oil temp. On the dash, I watched the trans temp, but that stayed in the 170s the whole trip thanks to the PPE, trans cooler, and deep pan. The engine temp hovered right around 240 to 250 pretty much the whole time. While that sounds hot, it's actually good as the oil operates best at 220 to 240, and that's where the engine is designed to operate for max efficiency. 275 is the danger zone, and as long as I don't see that, I will not worry. First fill-up came up in Barstow, California, about 555 miles in. I added 9.861 gallons. It could have taken more, but at $6.49 a gallon, I opted to just stop there. The first trip ended at 7,141 miles on the odometer for a total of 670.9 miles, with the dash showing 27.1 miles per gallon, and my 25-mile best was 41.2, an improvement over the prior 39.6. The 50-mile improved to 39.0 from 35.0, and the 450 went to 27.7 from a 26.9 prior. Hand calculations to be done at the start of the return trip. Since I already achieved the goal of beating my best numbers from before, I opted to try B20 fuel to start this trip. The truck took 16.62 gallons to fill to the max like before I started, and now we can have hand calculated numbers. I did make a 5-mile run to Target and get to this gas station, so my numbers are as follows. 676.1 miles total and 26.48 gallons used. The dash claims 26.9 miles per gallon in total, while I calculate 25.53 miles per gallon. So the dash is off by 1.4 miles per gallon. Okay, let's get on the road and discuss this B20. Now I can feel a slight loss in power on acceleration, just normal driving like accelerating to pass or getting up to speed from a stop. Cruising, it seems to be no different, but idling outside, it is much different sounding and much louder. Overall, I had no issues running it. I filled up in Fillmore, Utah, where it accepted 22.385 gallons. While approaching my house, I actually was improving my 450-mile number and got to 27.9 as I rolled into the pump. I filled at the same station as where I started, and it took 4.766 gallons to be completely full. This return trip ended up at 667.3 miles and took 27.15 gallons total, with the dash showing 27 miles per gallon, but hand calculations show 24.58 miles per gallon, which is a 2.4 mile per gallon difference from the gauge cluster. 1,343.4 total miles driven using 53.63 gallons and a combined total of 25.04 miles per gallon in a full-size truck going 80 miles per hour the majority of the drive. In total, I used roughly 1 gallon of DEF. On the dash, it showed 2 bars low, but 1 gallon was what topped it off. Check out my truck review video or some of the modification videos like the PPE transmission cooler install. Towing test will be done shortly as well as more product installs on the upcoming 23 LZ0 truck.